Okay, so this is Accessibility Foundation's Wise Practices. And on the slide is an image of icons depicting people with varying ages and abilities, including those who use canes, service dogs, and other mobility devices, with one person holding a Nova Scotia flag. Alrighty, so practices and approaches for removing or preventing barriers. So we'll review each of these approaches for removing or preventing barriers for persons with disabilities. So the list includes universal design, accommodation, accessibility standards, and first voice and intersectional representation. So universal design. So a single design, this is essentially like a single design that can be used by as many people as possible, um, or designing a product, service, or environment that offers equivalent experiences to all users. So some examples of this are curb cuts, like the image on the slide. Curb cuts on sidewalks make it easier for people pushing strollers, the elderly with walkers, or those rolling a bag behind them, maybe. Other examples include ramps, automatic doors, flat panel light switches, closed captioning, web pages that provide alternative text to describe images, smooth ground level entrances without stairs in um, or instruction that presents material both orally and visually, or signs with visual contrast. Um, so universal design is the fundamental condition of good design where everyone benefits, not just people with disabilities. All right, so accommodation. So an accommodation is a reactive tool to adjust environments, services, and products able to be utilized by someone with a disability. So accommodations are solutions that remove or reduce barriers in the environment for one person or group of people. So often people use accessibility and accommodation interchangeably, but individuals may experience barriers differently. And just because you have the same diagnosis does not mean you will need the same accommodation. So generally, the onus to request accommodations is on the person with a disability. Other people may not ask for an accommodation because they don't know what they have. They don't know that they have a right to ask for it. And so on the slide, there is an image of three people seated in a boardroom with laptops and notebooks. A power wheelchair user sits beside a person wearing dark sunglasses and a hijab who is speaking animatedly and gesturing. And then beside them is a person listening carefully. Okay, so examples of accommodations are assistive slash adaptive technology, such as speech to text and or text to speech, and extra time during the interview to complete testing, or flexible working arrangements, even hybrid working uh, location, so like location and hours, and noise canceling headphones and sensory friendly environments. So the diversity of disabilities will require a diversity of accommodations, and these may be very specific to each individual. So some examples of these are assistive adaptive technologies such as um, software or services used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities. Um, yeah, and sorry, I already kind of said that little part. But there will always be a need to provide accommodations for persons with disabilities, even as accessibility progresses. So persons with disabilities have the right to request and receive appropriate flexible accommodations. And employers are required by law to offer accommodations up until the point of undue hardship. However, our goal is to design our spaces and services so that they're accessible for everyone in order to reduce the need for accommodations. So accessibility standards. Part of the Nova Scotia Accessibility Directorate's work is to develop accessibility standards in the following areas. So built environment, employment, education, goods and services, information and communication, and transportation. So accessibility standards are rules that tell people, organizations, and governments and businesses what they must do to make sure people with disabilities can access services and programs. So accessibility standards. So Nova Scotia does not yet have any accessibility standards. The built environment accessibility standard will be the first standard to be enacted. And the built environment includes human-made spaces such as parking, buildings, signage, and outdoor areas. So on the slide, there is an image of a man in a wheelchair measuring the height of a small meeting table. So next we have our key messages. So the first one is disabilities are visible and invisible, and barriers include physical, informational, systemic, attitudinal, and intersectional barriers. And accessibility, uh, what is accessibility essentially? When our environment, services, products, and policies are proactively designed so that people with disabilities can fully and equally participate without experiencing barriers. And practices and approaches for removing barriers include universal design, accommodation, accessibility standards, and first voice intersectional representation. And Nova Scotia's Accessibility Act recognizes accessibility as a human right and sets the goal of an accessible Nova Scotia by 2030. And nothing about us without us means disabled people must play a key role in developing policies, programs, and services. All right, thank you. And the image on the screen is a hand holding a lens, looking at a blurred landscape with mountains and a lake.